in my opinion, it's very much like life insurance. Like you get it, you hope you don't ever have to use it, right? Like your spouse has life insurance. Eric and I, both have it. Hopefully the terms run out and we were like, oh crap, that was a huge waste of money. Like that's the, goal of it. But in the worst case scenario, you are glad that you have that there. So that's what this is.
Hey there, and welcome to the Digital Nomad Family podcast. This is the place where families who have or want to have a nomadic lifestyle come together to talk about the highs and lows that this life brings. We celebrate the joys and support each other in the hard. So, if you are a digital nomad family or will be in the future, this is the place for you. We're glad you're here.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Digital Nomad Family podcast. I am Marissa and I am very not excited about this episode, but I think it's important. And so if the title caught your attention and you were thinking, what in the world is she talking about? I hope that this is a helpful episode to you. If you don't know me, I am a full-time traveling wife and mom. My husband and I have been living a nomadic lifestyle for about a year and a half now. So we have a titch of experience. There's definitely so much more for us to learn, but that's why we have this and this community so we can learn from each other. So I get on here and give you some of the things that I have learned from experience and talking to other people. And hopefully you will get involved and share some of your insights with me. So a good way to do that is either on Instagram. We have a family travel page. We are so bad at it. Like, you know how some people, they have like brands reach out to them to be like, hey, we love your social media. Can you come to our place and tell other families how great it is? We're not that. We are really bad at keeping up on social media, but you can always send a private message. We are Family of Dashes, and we kind of go through bursts where we post on it, we don't post on it, but we're still here. I tend to get very involved with the kids and not so much on social media. And that is just how I roll. I get on social media, so I do it. I'm just not good at posting. Are there any other people out there, raise your hand somehow, shoot me an email or even just a DM in Instagram and say, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from. I'm on the app. I just don't post on the app. Those are my people. Those are my people. And so shoot me a message about any advice you have. You can also email me. Our website is familyofdashes.com. And I don't know, I'll put it in the show notes. I think that's what it is. Again, not so great at that. But I love getting on here and talking with you guys about certain things. So we're currently in a series called Disaster Diaries, exploring worst case scenarios. And the first one was all about how do you handle anti-travel family and friends, especially back in your passport country. And hopefully that was helpful to you guys. We do have anti-travel people in our family, so lots of that was pulled directly from my real life. And so that was that. Today we're going to be talking about how, as travel parents, because this is Digital Nomad Family podcast, and as parents, we still want to do all the things that we did when we weren't traveling. So date night. As kids get older, they do have the ability to leave you can leave the house as parents and let the kids stay home alone. And that's a really nice thing because now you don't need to worry about a babysitter. And I cannot speak into having to find a babysitter in a different country because I never lived that. We have always had kids old enough to leave at the house without us there. So Currently, our youngest is 10, but our oldest is 16. So and then we have 2 in the middle. And so our kids are old enough now to be left at home. And so this episode is all about how can we be the most responsible parents away from our kids in a different country, okay? So I think having some plans lined up is a really good idea. So this episode is actually going to be really short because it's such a focused topic. So we're just going to get right into it, but I hope it gets you thinking. These are just the things we do in my family. Please don't think that this is how you should do it. I'm not even saying that this is the best way. There's probably other better ways to handle this, but this is what we do. These are kind of the things that we have set up in our family, so our kids know what to do in a worst case situation. So by this, what you might be talking about, Marissa, what do you mean? I mean, Eric and I go out on a date night, and sadly, we're in a car accident or something awful happens to both of us, and our kids are home alone now. What do we do? Now, I want it to be known that I do think that this is a very, very small chance of anything like this happening. But for the well-being of our kids, I do think it's best to have. In my opinion, it's very much like life insurance. Like, you get it, you hope you don't ever have to use it, right? Like, your spouse has life insurance. Eric and I, both have it. Hopefully, the terms run out and we were like, oh crap, that was a huge waste of money. Like, that's the, goal of it. But in the worst case scenario, you are glad that you have that there. So that's what this is. It's just a plan that you put in place. So God forbid, if you're in a car accident and maybe both of you are taken to the hospital, right? Like, I'm not even talking about that both of you have died in this car accident. I'm just saying maybe you were both very injured, right? Maybe you both need surgery, and so they put you to sleep. But we're talking hours of your kids having no idea what's going on, right? Because it's not like you can call them and be like, oh, hey, this has happened. Like, you were injured. And so this is, in my opinion, worst case scenario number 1. But we do have a contingency plan in place for when Eric and I do go out for a date. Him and I do go, maybe lots of times we like to go on a walk after dinner. Not so much here in El Salvador because it's very hilly, but in other cities, we'll go on a walk after dinner while the kids are cleaning up. And it gives us some time to reconnect. And our kids are doing dishes anyway, so we might as well. So what if something were to happen on that walk? A car swerves onto the sidewalk. Like, you cannot plan for these horrific events. But I do think it's important to have something set up. So again, this is going to be a really short episode because I do think it's very specific. And this is just what we have set up in our family. So let's just go right into it. I think it's important to have someone in your passport country that has a passport, and they are the primary person that they're going to come get your kids if you cannot be contacted. Either you're in the hospital or you have died. I hate saying that, but I mean, come on. That's just what we're talking about. If you don't have anyone in your passport country that has a passport, let's say that you are thinking you want it to be your brother or your sister, and you're like, I want you to be the person that flies across the Pacific Ocean when we're in Vietnam if, God forbid, something were to happen to me and my spouse. Well, what if they don't have a passport? I think in that situation, offering to pay for them to get a passport is 100% reasonable. If they, in their life, don't feel like they need a passport, and you're just hoping that they're the person to come get your kids or to come over to be with them while you are in hospital or something like that, offer to pay for them to get their passport. I think that is very, very reasonable. And then later on, you guys can figure out if it is like a hospital situation, then you can pay them back for their ticket, all this kind of stuff. Eric and I have life insurance. So if something were to happen to us, then the life insurance will go to then cover what they had to put out of pocket to get their ticket to come get our kids and to fly them all back home. So having life insurance is a good idea. Check with your life insurance, make sure that it's okay outside of your passport country. So that's just step number one. Have someone in your passport country. They will be the contact person that your kids call if you miss curfew. And we'll get to that point here in a little bit. Anytime Eric and I leave our kids at the house, again, our kids are older. So like when I say leave our kids, I'm talking about we have a 16-year-old. Like if we were in the United States, he'd be looking at driver's license. So like we're not being irresponsible. I'm not advocating leaving children that cannot take care of themselves or anything like that. But when we do leave our age-appropriate children at home, we always make sure that they know where some cash is. And we always leave one of our international credit cards with them. We don't make a big deal of it. I just don't take my purse. Eric will have his wallet just in case we want to pop into a shop and buy something. But I always just leave my bag here and the kids know which credit card. Well, there's 2 in there and they can use either. We also have Uber on our kids' phones. So that way they can order food and we teach them how to order food. That's an important step. So if your kids are older, put Uber connected to one of your credit cards on their phone. Don't let them just buy stuff while they're at the house. Let them know, hey, this is just for this worst case scenario. But then they can get food delivered to the house. Or if they're old enough, which every country has different age restrictions, but if they needed to order a car to say for us, it would be the U.S. Embassy, they can always order a car to get to the embassy. So we always leave cash and a credit card. They know where it is. And they have Uber on their phone for food and for cars. Because of the fact that our son is 16 and he definitely looks like a 16-year-old. Does that make sense? He's not like a immature looking boy. He very much has like a matured body. It would be totally acceptable. They would let him get into an Uber with his siblings, if that makes sense. Like they wouldn't freak out about it. Like, what are these kids doing? That would be fine. And so that's just like that. Again, that's our situation. And make sure that they know how to use these devices. Make sure they know how to use Uber to get food, and use it to order a car. Then anytime Eric and I leave the house, anytime we have a curfew set and we just say, we will be back by 8:30. We will be. And here's the thing, guys, be an adult and communicate. If you know that you're going to be 5 minutes late, you text them. We have a 0 grace period for this. One, it models to our kids that curfews matter. Because if we're going to have a flippant attitude toward curfew, well, then what are our kids going to see modeled when they go out with their friends and they have a curfew and they're like, yeah, but mom and dad don't listen to it. So more is caught than is taught. So be an adult and communicate. Now, because I am the mom and Eric is the dad, if we decide to stay out a little bit later, we do. I'm not beholden to that time because I set that time. Now, that is a little different than me giving my kids a curfew. If I give them a curfew, they better be in by 8:30. But since Eric and I are the ones that set the curfew, if we pop into a shop and we're like, oh, we're looking at our watch and we go, oh, we are going to be a little bit later, we send them a text message. Hey guys, we're going to be 15 minutes late, so we'll be home at 8:45. 0 grace period for this. And the reason for this is if we miss the curfew, our kids know the person to call in the United States to say, hey, mom and dad set this curfew. They're not here. We need you to do something. It's not the kids' responsibility to try to figure out how to call the police in whatever country we're in, right? Like they're kids. We don't want to put that on them. We want to have another adult that is going to manage that. And so we have a 0 grace period for our curfew because the last thing, well, one, again, we don't want to model that curfews don't matter. Curfews matter. 2, if something does happen to Eric and I, we do want someone contacted immediately. You know what I mean? We don't want it to be like this 45-minute no man's land of like, well, should we try to figure out what's going on? What do we do? And so our kids know if we ever miss that curfew, you don't have to text us. You don't have to try to call us. You just text the person in the United States and let them know. And then from there, we have contacted that person and we tell them the embassy number. We send them like the local police number. So that way they know who to contact. Again, it shouldn't be your kids' responsibility to try to reach out to the embassy and let them know that they haven't heard from their parents. That needs to be another adult. And then I do think it's a good idea to reach out to whatever embassy you're in. I do think embassies are very helpful resources, and I do think we don't utilize them enough as digital nomads. So reach out to the embassy that you're in and let them know, hey, we're going to be here for 3-4 months. What should our kids do if something happens to my husband and I? And just see what they say. They might have some good tips for you as well. So that's it. I told you it was going to be short and sweet, right? But I do think it's an important thing. We have talked with our kids about this. Our kids know what to do. But because of the fact that Eric and I do go out alone together, we have to have something in place. I just think again, this is just about being responsible, right? It's that hopefully this never happens. And to be honest, I think the odds of this ever happening are extremely low. But if that worst case scenario happens, that you are in an Uber together and the Uber's in a car accident, right? That's a terrible situation. And now you potentially have kids home alone, not knowing what's going on. So yeah, kind of a standing rule that we have is if Eric and I are going somewhere, now this is just Eric and I. As a family of 6, this rule does not apply. Because people will be like, well, you go to airplanes together. Yes, we do. If we're traveling as a group of 6 and we can get into one vehicle, we do it, okay? Anytime we leave an airport, we usually are able to get some type of large van, like an 8-passenger or like 12-passenger van. Like that's what we came here in. And then we're just all together. Because if we're in a car accident, the kids are going to know we're in a car accident. Does that make sense? They're not going to be home alone wondering, where's mom and dad? They were with us. So airplanes we do together. Big cars we do together. And we do ride in Ubers together within cities where we know the likelihood of getting into a really bad car accident are very low. So in Mexico City, him and I would jump into an Uber together. But that's because if you've been to Mexico City, you'll know what I'm talking about. The traffic is awful. And so you never really go that fast. So I know that the worst could happen in any car accident, but the odds are very, very low. And so we would get into the same Uber because we're going a 15-minute drive in the city and we're going to go maybe a maximum of 35 miles an hour. So we would do that. But if we were going to go a long distance and potentially get into a more serious car accident, we have decided in that situation we would get 2 different cars. Now, I don't see a situation why Eric and I would be going like that far away from town, but I have no idea. We just talk about these things because I think it's a smart idea. And so I think the biggest thing is with this, just talk with your spouse and say, okay, what are we comfortable doing? What are we comfortable leaving? What are we comfortable with our kids having while we are gone on date night? Because marriages are still marriages, and we're going to get to that actually in an upcoming episode, that we need to date our spouses. We need to spend time just the 2 of us. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a very healthy thing. We just also have to take into consideration that when we're in the United States, we have multiple friends in the city that we're in. So if something happens, it would be so easy to just contact one of them and go, hey, we were in this car crash. The kids are at the house. Can you just pop over there and make sure that they're okay? But here as a nomad family, and we're in all these different cities, sometimes you make a friend and that's fantastic. And you can make sure that your kids have their number and all that kind of stuff. I'm all for that. But in this type of situation, you as travelers, we do need to think about, okay, who's going to get on that airplane to come over here and watch our kids if we're in the hospital for 2 weeks? What are we going to do? Are we going to pay for someone to come over here and be with the kids? Are we going to pay for the kids to go back to the States? What are we going to do if this worst case situation happens while we're still just trying to live a normal life? So that's all, guys. That's all I have for this one. I don't want to, scare anyone or anything like that. That's not the aim of this series at all. But I do think that as traveling parents, thinking about the well-being of our kids is important. So that is all for this one. I hope that it kind of gets your head spinning about, okay, as our kids get older, or now that they are at the age where we can leave them at the house for a little bit longer and maybe the two of us go grab a coffee or something, what safeguards are we going to set up just in case something awful happens? Because I do think, as not fun as it is, it's important. So I hope that it was helpful. I hope it got some ideas going around in your head. And thank you so much for listening. I really have a lot of fun talking with you guys. I know this one wasn't fun at all, but I really do have fun talking about being a traveler and all the things connected to being a full-time digital nomad. It really is what I geek out on. Just like an hour ago, my husband and I were on a Zoom call with another husband and wife who are thinking about transitioning to this lifestyle. And I mean, I could literally just talk all day about it. I love it so much. So thanks guys for listening. And as always, I hope that you continue to travel joyfully.